Hi everyone, I'm Jeremy Reeves, head blender of Cornell and Deal Pipe Tobacco Company, and I have a very special guest with me today. Michael, why don't you tell us a little bit about your relationship to Toscano?
Absolutely, yeah. So I'm Michael Cappellini. I'm the North American brand ambassador for Toscano Cigars. I could say that now because officially I'm doing events in Canada too, which is pretty exciting. My job with Sigaro Toscano is to sell the experience of our tobacco, of our cigars, etc. It's a really interesting position because I get to travel the country. I get to meet so many great people, so many people that are so passionate about tobacco, in particular Italian tobacco, which most of the country has no idea even exists in reality. But it's awesome when I'm in front of people and I see their initial reactions to smoking Toscano for the first time, and to me that just makes everything worth it. I've been with the company since 2017, which is kind of crazy to think about. It seems like yesterday I just accepted the offer, and I think that ultimately what we're about to dive into is something that excites me beyond belief, and I think that it's just an additional power to the 209-year company that we are. So I think it's going to be an awesome segue into what we're about to dive into.
Very, very cool. So we have the Toscano Maestro tobaccos sitting in front of us. I have been a student of tobacco since about 2003.
I learned that rapidly yesterday.
I quickly found that the seemingly never-ending pool of data to crunch through was sort of an endorphin rush for me.
Absolutely.
And so I have smoked or used tobacco in virtually every form that you can think of. And one of my forays was certainly into Toscano cigars. And it occurred to me that Toscano in many ways sort of is an interesting bridge between the seeming gap of premium cigars and pipe tobacco.
100%.
There's something about it. There's something about the experience of a Toscano that has the nuance and the richness and the wild variability that ultimately brought me to pipe tobacco.
Right.
And while I think that cigars have in general, I think that premium cigars have a lot of nuance. It's not nearly as different from cigar to cigar,
right,
as what you find from Toscano blend to Toscano blend.
Absolutely.
Or from pipe blend to pipe blend. There's just a seeming wild amount of variability, and I thought that bringing something like the Toscano experience into the pipe tobacco space made sense. Can you tell us a little bit about the Maestro name and the brand?
Yeah. So just to touch on something you kind of hit on, the fact that you foresaw the ability of Toscano tobacco to be that bridge is huge. And it's funny, when I first started, I can remember, my God, my nono smoking Toscano when I was a kid. He used to hide his Toscano and his pipe on the wheel well of his car as he was washing it, so I didn't see him smoking. But it's been entrenched in my life since I was a little kid. And you hit something that really resonates with me, in the fact that our tobacco is very complex.
Yes.
Our tobacco has so many different nuances to it, and it's a no-brainer that we launched this collaboration because it's brilliant. And having the masterful hands of you, Jeremy, do what you do is just unbelievable. I saw it yesterday. I'm still in shock. My father has no idea anything about pipe tobacco, and the first thing I did when I talked to him yesterday, I was like, you have to see this. You have to see the art, the passion, the love, the understanding of the tobacco that goes into each and every one of these blends. You're unbelievable. So we're very lucky to have this partnership, so I really appreciate you.
Thank you. We feel the same way. Thank you very much.
Yeah, so now back to the original question that you asked. The Maestro. So ultimately, when we talk about Toscano, Sigaro Toscano, we talk about old world elegance with, innovative steps forward. That's what I like to say. And realistically, that's kind of what this name captures. Maestro is obviously has everything to do with the musical side of Italian art. And the three different surnames that we chose for these blends are important to understand, because just like our tobacco having so many nuances, just like our tobacco having so many different tones, as does a concert, as does music. And I think that's why this really is a wonderful, wonderful parallel, the name itself with the different blends of the tobacco, which I know we're going to dive into. But I mean, obviously, you know, the biggest thing to understand is, you know, and this is kind of a chip that we have on our shoulder at Toscano, we try to bring old world beauty to 2024.
Yeah, I think that makes total sense.
So
that lines up in fact pretty well with the ethos of C&D that you know, we talked about it some in going through the factory yesterday. We're using machinery from the 1930s.
Unbelievable.
And 40s. We're doing so much work by hand that many other producers would be doing all mechanically.
Right.
But at the same time, we're trying to find ways to innovate.
Absolutely.
And we're trying to find ways to infuse elements of technology in ways that don't become a barrier between the human touch and the product that we're producing. Because I think that human touch is paramount.
Oh, absolutely. It only increases the quality, it increases the consumer experience, etc. And that's why when we were going through the factory yesterday, I couldn't help but, you know, look at the similarities between what you do and what I see in Lucca also. You know what I mean?
Right.
So, and you've been to Lucca,
yes,
so you can actually defend that statement. I mean, realistically, it's amazing. And for those of you out there that smoke tobacco, I really, honest to God, want to drive the point home with both Toscano tobacco and the tobacco blends that we have here with Maestro. It's such an art form to create this unbelievable tobacco. And like you said, the labor, the hours of labor that goes into every single little ribbon of this tobacco is just astronomical. I mean, you really opened my eyes yesterday.
Oh, that's
really and truly. So
I'm really glad. Well, one of the things that I think is really great about Toscano is the entire product is just a huge celebration of one of the most labor-intensive tobaccos that is produced, and
absolutely,
that is dark fired. Dark fired is in the consumer's mind, dark fired is that place where you know, flavors of barbecue and you know, hardwood smoke really come into play. But to me, when I think of dark fired, I think of all of the work that goes into growing that crop.
Absolutely.
And all of the willingness to risk take required on the part of the farmer to harvest that tobacco that he has so lovingly grown and cared for and kept alive through all of the trials and tribulations of the weather.
Absolutely. Especially in today's world too, where things are changing so rapidly. These farmers, you know, are just really they're magic workers. They really are. They're magic workers.
So they take all that work and then they hang it in a wooden structure and light a fire in the base of it and keep that going for 14 to 16 days.
Yep.
You know, it is an act of defiance.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
to produce dark fired and then to have a product that is entirely made of it and that so deeply celebrates it and showcases all of the nuances that make that risk worth taking.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Well, it is. And, you know, real fast, if it's okay, I kind of want to touch on the story of Toscano tobacco.
Please.
Because it's imperative to this conversation. Ultimately, when you look at, you know, how Toscano tobacco came about, we had harvested a bunch of Kentucky seed tobacco in Italy. In 1815. So after decades of trying to get enough tobacco to use for something, they didn't even know what they were going to use the tobacco for originally. They finally got a really nice amount of this tobacco. The tobacconists were ecstatic because, you know, it's technically a different seed that was transplanted to Italy. A rainstorm came and soaked our tobacco. They didn't know what to do with it. So they let it sit in the sun. What started to happen was it naturally fermented. It stunk of ammonia. Neighbors complained. So just like you just said, somebody that was brilliant, yet a big risk taker, decided, well, listen, I have a barn. Let's put strings in that barn and drape the tobacco over it and light a fire over combustible leaves and see what happens. And sure enough, it was that day in September of 1815 that birthed what is now one of the most powerful brands across the world in Sigaro Toscano. And it's crazy. It's crazy.
That is incredible.
You know, and to have about 30% of our tobacco come from the United States, in Kentucky, Tennessee, and the other 70 from 5 regions in Italy, Veneto, Umbria, Toscana, Lazio, and Campania, is really a huge part of my soul, because here it is, I'm helping stimulate 2 economies of the 2 countries that I love the most. So,
And there is actually a pipe tobacco tie-in with Toscano as well. The snipped ends for a long time were sold in retail shops in Italy as pipe tobacco, because they would just be like the little floret, the 2 cut ends of the Toscano that someone could quite nicely fit into a pipe and smoke. So as you said, your grandfather would hide his Toscano in his pipe. Same concept, but this was something that was marketed that way.
Well, and Nono used to, when he'd get down to the bottom, like you said, he'd get it, and instead of having the little, the circular things, he would literally grind it in his hand, and then he'd put it in his pipe and light it, which is something I started doing. I started doing it before, because again, as we stated before we started this, I'm newer to the pipe and the pipe world, and these tobaccos got me to dive headfirst in.
Nice.
They really did. I mean, again, obviously it's a Toscano branded thing, so I'm like, yes, absolutely. But then the complexity and the flavor profile, which I know we're going to get into. Sorry, this is what happens when you sit down with me. Ultimately, it really opens up your palate and really gives you that proper understanding of the complexity of the tobacco, and it's almost like you could taste a little bit of the labor that goes into this. So again, I don't want to steal your thunder. I'm sorry.
No, not at all. Let's go ahead and get into this. That we're first smoking here. We're starting with Allegro. So the 3 blends that we developed with Toscano. Each of the blends are 3 components. 2 of them are variations on a blend of Virginia, dark fired, and Latakia.
Got it.
And one of them is a blend of Perique, dark fired, and Latakia.
Okay.
So in the Allegro, this is going to be the mildest and mellowest of the 3. The most Virginia complexity and presence is in that blend, with sort of spicings of the kind of smoky characteristics that the dark, sort of deep hardwood smoke the dark fired imparts, and the campfire sort of softwood and incensey notes that Latakia has. Not Symphonia, in Concerto, you have Perique, dark fired, and Latakia. These are the 3 in my mind. These are the 3 most labor intensive tobaccos in the world.
Okay, explain.
So Perique is grown in St. James Parish, Louisiana. All of the Perique farms in St. James are directly across, literally, the street from the Mississippi River.
Oh, okay.
The levee
Interesting.
is right there. So you talk about risk.
No kidding. Oh, my God.
The soil, because they're so close to the river, is effluvial.
Okay.
Which means that the mineral content and the nutrients that are imparted into the soil are directly from the river soaking into the soil right there.
Wow.
And so as the year progresses, you've got all of the things living in the river, dying in the river, growing in the river, and flowing off of the river into the dirt that is right there by the river bed.
Absolutely.
So all of those elements, and then the riskiness of the weather that close to the Mississippi, an area where regularly there's hurricanes and floods and whatnot. But then you're growing this tobacco, you harvest it, you hang it in a barn like you would to air cure, but you only partially air cure. You don't fully air cure it because you don't want to lose all of the sugar.
Right.
So you're air curing for like 2 to 3 weeks. Then you're taking it all down, breaking all of the leaves off the stalk, stripping the midrib by hand, wetting it, and then, like the Toscano, it goes through a fermentation process.
Right.
But that fermentation process takes place in an anaerobic situation.
Okay.
They pack the leaves into little bundles that they call carottes, and then those are packed into an ex-bourbon barrel
Oh, nice.
and then placed under about 30 tons of pressure. Every 3 months, that tobacco, the pressure is removed. That tobacco swells back up, soaks in new stuff flowing through the air off of the river. It's allowed to air out for about 12 hours.
Okay.
And then it has to go back into the barrel again for another 3 months.
So this tobacco is pressed for 6 months.
It's pressed for a year.
It's pressed for a year.
This happens every 3 months
Get out of here.
for a year. And that is what produces this deep black color, almost purple.
Yeah.
The fermentation of Perique is something that goes back pre the Acadian migration from what was Acadia, now Nova Scotia,
Wow.
to this region of Louisiana. It goes back all the way to natives in that area previously, the Choctaw and Chickasaw Indians, who God knows how long they were doing this. They
Right.
had no written language.
Unbelievable. I said yesterday I love being the most uneducated person in the room, and that is blatantly obvious today. Blatantly obvious today. So,
With Perique, and then you've got dark fired, this, again, very labor intensive, risky proposition that we've talked about, and then Latakia that takes that risky proposition of putting your crop in a wooden structure with a fire underneath and takes it out for months rather than 2 weeks.
right.
So those are the three components in this blend that we're about to smoke. And then lastly, we've got Symphonia, which is back to Virginia, dark fired and Latakia. But the Symphonia has been pressed and fermented for 7 days under pressure.
Okay.
And then it's cut into what we call a flake.
Okay.
So that processing of pressing allows the sweetness of the blend to really deepen and imparts all sorts of new components in the mix. Through fermentation, you're beginning to create new chemical compounds
Really neat.
that change the way that the tobacco smells and tastes. And so really here, just as you have made an entire line of really powerful and popular cigars that are based on fermentation and variations on that type of fermentation. And we're using the same kinds of ideas in these blends.
Right.
And using very pared down simple components to achieve really complex goals.
It's been an absolute honor from seeing the process, from understanding your artisanal aspects to, again, one of the biggest things, you're not just a craftsman, you're an artisan. So congratulations to your success.
Thank you.
And I really think that this is going to be an awesome partnership continuing forward. We have a new one coming out, don't we?
That's right. Maestro Puccini.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Tell me about Maestro Puccini. Tell me about where the name came from. Tell me about the idea behind it.
Yeah, so Puccini, yeah, Puccini's Puccini in Italy. I mean, everybody knows who Puccini is. He's one of the best composers ever. And again, when the initial discussions that we had regarding the name of the Maestro, old world charm in 2024, you know, Puccini, although he's been gone for decades, is still such a popular figure in Italy when we talk about the art form of music. And that's why it was a no-brainer to add that name and collaborate him with these tobaccos.
So 3 different dark-fired components. So we're remaining with this 3-component theme.
Yes.
But this is going to be the most akin to the Toscano experience in a pipe. We're using 3 different origins of dark-fired leaf to achieve something that is right in line with that Toscano experience in a pipe.
Nice.
Presented for a pipe. It will also go through the flake fermentation. So again, using a fermentation element the same way that Toscano does.
Yep.
So
This is gonna be awesome. I
yeah,
cannot wait.
I'm excited.
Jeremy,
I
thank
think it's
you.
delicious.
Thank you for your hospitality. Thank you to the whole team here. I'm looking forward to many more returns.
And thank you for putting your faith in us to work on this project for you and to carry the
no-brainer.
Toscano name into the pipe tobacco space.
No brainer.
Thank you so much. I
Thank
really
you, buddy.
appreciated the conversation.
Me too. Trust
All
me.
right.
See you
next
guys.
time, everyone.